The last official day of the 2021 Formula One season is reaching its conclusion here at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi. And it may look like it's already concluded, and for one team it already has. Down here at the empty garages, they were once occupied by the Williams team. That team has gone home. Its driver had a little bit of a moment yesterday out on track during the young driver test. They only bought one car. No tyre test mule for the Williams team. They only planned to run that run day, and no more Williams. But as you can probably hear in the background, the action hasn't stopped. Down the pit lane, there are 9 teams and drivers competing for the best time and to learn the most information about the 2022 Pirelli tyres. But there are actually 10 cars out on track. The Haas team, for reasons of, various reasons, have been allowed to run their young driver portion of the test today, not yesterday. So there are 2 Haas cars out on track at the moment. One of them will be driven by Robert Schwartzman. He's out on track at the moment in the test mule car. That's the Haas VF19, fitted with the new wheels and tyres. And when the car left the pit lane just a little while ago, I noticed they were running those sort of rear-facing headlights we've seen Ferrari use a few times to look at the bulge at the base of those new Pirelli tyres. The other Haas at the moment will be being driven by Pietro Fittipaldi. Well, except he's not going very far. Schwartzman, though, actually has appeared in the pit lane here. Didn't expect to see Robert here, but he's down here waiting for his car to be ready. But the Haas out there is looking at the tyre bulge at the base of the tyre. That gives some really important detail for how the tyres deform under load at different downforce levels. And we'll talk about McLaren in a minute, but Alfa Romeo, they've been running along quite nicely. But as we walk along the pit lane, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about some of the lap times, because there's been a lot of discussion about lap times in this test on social media, and I think something a few people are not really understanding fully is yesterday during the young driver test there were 2 specifications of car in operation. There were the 2021 cars. They were run as they were in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, fully set up and optimised for this circuit. And then there were the mule cars. Now, the mule cars are running the Pirelli 2022 tyres. They're running a mix of wheels, and I'll get to that point. But they're not really optimised for this circuit. They're test cars, and they range in age from 2018 to right up till 2021. That's what the regulations say. The mule car can be built out of any car that's raced since 2018. And actually, because the tyre testing mules actually started in use in 2019, when Pirelli were expecting new regulations to come in 2021, that's why you're seeing such a range of cars. So the lap times from today and from the test mules are not really very much use of gleaning any information over who's got a quick car or who's done a quick lap or who hasn't, because it's not really relevant. They're different sorts of cars from different eras for different purposes. But what we can glean is the difference between the mule cars and a 2021 car. And at the moment, a mule car is just over a second a lap slower than a 2021 car, depending on the run plan, the tyres they're using. Big pops and bangs like that are always a Honda. Now, that's really crucial. So we can only really look in terms of lap times at the young driver test. And when you're doing that, you're sort of assessing the young drivers themselves. And the only driver to really stand out was Nick de Vries. Now, he set a time yesterday, right at the end of the day, in the Mercedes, the 2021 Mercedes, which was on a par. It was within a few hundredths of a second of the fastest lap in qualifying of Valtteri Bottas, but not Lewis Hamilton, though we don't know what engine modes and power unit modes the Mercedes teams opted to use for that run. So there's a little bit of differential in that. But come and have a look at this, because today it's all about the mule cars, unless you're Haas, then it's about everything. This is the Ferrari test mule car, and a bit of work going on at the moment, but the really important thing to look at are these front brakes. Now, you can see what we see down on the floor here. These are nicknamed by the English teams, at least, cake tins, because, well, they look like the tins that cakes come in. That's really it. Some people refer to them as brake drums, but that gets a bit confusing because they're not drum brakes, they're disc brakes, but the drum is this bit that goes around it. So cake tin, brake drum, same sort of thing. But underneath these specially adapted new front brakes here, you can see this section underneath it. Well, what Ferrari are actually running is an older style, 2021 specification if you like. I think it's actually an older specification. Brake disc and pad and caliper arrangement, but then they're housing it in these new big brake drums. Now these are specially made for the Mule cars. It won't be the same on the actual 2022 cars, but this is just so Ferrari can assess it. And one of the other things that the teams get to change about the Mule cars is the aerodynamic package. These cars are designed and set up to feel a lot more like the 2022 cars will be. So they're running different downforce levels as well. And that means, again, the lap times aren't really representative in terms of who's quickest and who's not. It's not what this test is all about. So when people say, oh, such and such did a really good lap, it doesn't really matter. That's not what anyone cares about. So just looking back at the different tyres and different technologies people are running, what have we seen today? Well, we've just seen an awful lot of laps. Yesterday, quite a lot of drivers did more than 2 race distances. And I was talking to Pietro Fittipaldi just before we made this, and he's been out on track for ages. Now he's doing a bit of sponsor engagement and talking to some people, and you saw Schwartzman out of the car. All the drivers are pretty knackered because it's really hot here at the circuit. And that's one of the reasons a lot of these races run in the Middle East are run at night, because it's just so darn hot at these tracks. But for Pirelli, hot asphalt, these hot conditions, that's perfect for learning how the tyres work. But the mechanics, it's the end of a long season. They've done a lot of hard work here down at Alpine. They're all very French, of course. And they are just sitting there watching and enjoying it and getting on with it. But a lot of the teams are also doing is, because it is the end of the season, it is the last day of Formula 1 2021, you start seeing these boxes and packages popping up all over the place. Here's some of Fernando Alonso's kit for his car and Esteban's kit. This is all the tools and stuff. The teams are beginning to pack up the garages to get ready for the new season. They'll take everything home, take everything apart, and start building it. So all of these wings and things, these all go off in boxes. And actually, these parts, these will end up probably on running show cars. As you see Red Bull going out there. Not actually sure who's in the Red Bull today. Max Verstappen was in it yesterday, the new world champion. Sergio Perez, one of the other young drivers. Sebastian Vettel, he's out on track in the Aston Martin at the moment. Not really seen much of him. One of the things, I've been spending so much time walking around the paddock and walking around the pit lane, I haven't really seen very much of what's going on track, because again, tyre testing, times don't matter. But there are some things I really do want to talk about, and some critical things that you may have seen a little bit of on social media, and they were all to do with this team, McLaren. Now, earlier in the first few laps of the test, I went out on track and did actually have a look, because McLaren were running new wheel covers on the back of the cars. Now, let's not forget, every single team will be running wheel covers on all 4 corners of the car in 2022. But McLaren they used their mule car as a test mule, if you like, for a little bit of an experiment. They had some LEDs fitted to that wheel cover, and they very neatly showed the F1 logo, which showed that there is an opportunity, perhaps, for some of the after dark races, for the wheels to be lit up with maybe car positions or sponsors logos or something like that. So that's an interesting thing. Just maybe we'll see a little bit more of. It was very much an experiment. I was out on track when it happened, and I think it was a pretty successful experiment. McLaren, one of those teams running a 2021-ish specification car. They have to do that because obviously last year they were Renault-powered, this year Mercedes-powered. They can't use an older car, they have to use it. Aston Martin as well. I said yesterday they were using RP20, the team have corrected me on that. Aston Martin are actually using AMR 21. They don't really want to talk about it too much, but the 2 cars are identical other than the components that they changed. And well, let's have a look at the McLaren, which is just coming into the pits now. Doesn't have those wheel covers on at all, but you can see it coming in. Lando Norris at the wheel, and then we're going to have a closer look. So you can see this McLaren is pretty much in 2021 specification. But if you look around here, JP, follow me. If you look around here, you can look at the rear floor of the car. Now you can see in the middle floor, it's got 2 of those sticky uppy bits that we talked about all year long. Unfortunately, they're banned for next year. But this floor specification came from earlier in the season. This isn't the specification that the car used in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. That's one of the aerodynamic changes the team has made to make this car suit these new wheels and tyres. And a point on those new wheels. Now the wheels on the McLaren here are, as I understand it, manufactured by a company called BBS, and they will be supplying every single team with wheels and tyres next season. But in this test, not every team is running BBS wheels and tyres. And the reason for that is that some of the mule cars are actually a lot older than others. So the Alpine mule car, you can see, just came into the pits. They're running wheels from a company called OZ. Now, those are very much prototypes on the Alpine that came in, which is actually a Renault. And the McLaren is running much closer to the final specification of BBS wheels. So there's still teams experimenting with what the wheels need to be. And the other thing that McLaren is experimenting with, and a number of other teams have been experimenting with, are the wheel covers themselves. Now, we've only really seen those out on track, and there's been various different specifications of them. Ferrari we've seen running carbon fibre, very nice looking, much closer to the ones we saw at the launch of the 2022 car. That's much closer to the final shape and design. But a few other teams have been running wheel covers manufactured by this team here. Drivers' World Champions, Max Verstappen won it, but Red Bull have actually been manufacturing some 3D printed wheel covers that they've supplied to a number of the other teams to understand how the wheel covers actually work in practice. And interesting, I was looking on the inside of one of these wheel covers earlier on, and Red Bull have, when they come up with a part, there's no Red Bull car parts around, but they tend to label their parts with little logos like this. Here you can see it actually quite clearly. So on the jack here, it's got a little nose logo, and that, I can tell you, this jack isn't the latest specification jack, because Red Bull have been using this for a while, because right down there is the number of the car that jack was first designed for, and it says RB13 at the beginning of the car parts. Well, we know that that's a Red Bull RB13 jack. Now, just before I say that, look at this Haas coming in, and you can see that light on the back of it. That white light is what I was talking about earlier. That's the tyre bulge light that they were looking at. So it's obviously Pietro went back out and Schwartzman took a break. That's why I got confused earlier on. But so Red Bull, with those wheel covers, on the inside of that wheel cover, the code name for that wheel cover starts RB18, which is, I don't know, but it's a little hint of maybe what next year's Red Bull is called. This year's Red Bull was the RB16B, so logic would dictate the next Red Bull would be the RB17, but maybe, for whatever reason, they're skipping a number. Not sure why, but let's talk about Mercedes. George Russell getting ready for a, well, he's not getting ready because the car's sitting here in the garage. The Mercedes mule car doesn't look particularly keen to go anywhere, and maybe they're finished for the day. You can see those big cake tins I was talking about at the front. Now, this is a Mercedes W10 that they've updated to current specification. George Russell's been in the car. I asked him what it was like driving this car, because he's got quite big feet. I have too, but at the front of the car here, the space at the front bulkhead you see here, right at the front, where you see that little black box and that red thing hanging down, that's where the driver's feet just sit inside that, so almost underneath the 63 of George Russell's number. That's where George Russell's feet sit. Now, the shape of the front of the chassis is very tight at that point. For drivers' feet don't fit inside that, they can't drive the car. I've got bigger feet than George Russell, and I know that I couldn't drive this Mercedes. Not just because of a lack of talent and ability, but I physically wouldn't fit into it. So the new, George was saying he just about squeezes into this car, like he just about squeezed into the W11 last year, and the W12 in testing, as well as an AlphaTauri comes in behind us. And George Russell, looking over that car, was saying next year's car is going to be really, really comfortable. He's looking forward to driving it. He's very excited about the 2022 season, the new Mercedes, and the new era of Formula One. And quite frankly, I don't know how anyone can disagree with that, because the new era of Formula One is going to be perhaps the most exciting there ever has been. So, looking forward to 2022. This is me signing off for 2021.